Here's how to get started with the Liquify Persona, which is an entire workspace dedicated to mesh-based distortions. Now, we start off in the Photo Persona, and we can move across to the Liquify Persona by tapping this icon. Now, by default, we start off with a blue mesh grid overlaid on the image. And if I just start pushing some pixels around and then release, we'll see that this grid actually indicates to us the level of distortion that we've just performed. However, we might find this grid over our image distracting, so we can hide it by going up to the Liquify Studio and reducing the opacity here to 0%. And I'll just use a two-finger tap to undo that distortion. Now, in terms of tools, we start with the push forward tool. This is perhaps the most intuitive tool to use. We simply set a suitable brush width, and then we can just drag to push and pull pixels around. So I can elongate the fingers and thumb here, like so, quite easily. And then we also have the other tools like the push left tool, the twirl tool, the pinch and punch tools, but interestingly we also have freeze and thaw tools down here. And what they allow us to do is selectively liquefy areas of our image whilst leaving other areas untouched. So I'll show you how to use these two tools. So we can select the freeze tool. Let's just make sure our brush width is suitable. And what I'll do is brush around the eye here. So all of these areas that I'm marking in the red overlay, I am freezing, which means they can no longer be affected by any of the Liquify tools. Okay? And then, for example, I might select the pinch tool, and we'll just zoom into this eye. Now, this is a good time to explore the options down here. Hardness controls the overall hardness of the brush, so you could, for example, set this to 0 for the softest edged brush. Opacity you can think of as strength. It's the overall build-up and application of the tool. And then speed just affects the speed with which the distortion is performed. So what I could do, for example, is increase both opacity and speed to around 90%, and then I can just start dragging. In fact, I might increase the brush width, and we can see here that I'm increasing or pinching the eye. Now, if we go too far, we can just simply use a two-finger tap to undo those operations. So I can just slightly drag over the eye to increase its prominence. Now notice, because we've frozen all of these surrounding areas, they're not actually being affected. In fact, if I start brushing into these areas, you'll see nothing happens. So freezing a surrounding area just allows us to work on a particular area in isolation. So I can go right up to the edges, and the area in the overlay will not be affected. And then once we're finished, we can choose the thaw tool, just choose a suitable brush width, and then just brush away those areas in red to thaw them, which means they can then be liquefied. So for example, if I choose the push forward tool again, you'll see I can now manipulate those areas.